Hi, everyone, and welcome to our next episode with Peter Hanja. Today, we are going to talk about financial positioning. This topic is going to be quite exciting. I hope we are going to share interesting insights about how you, as a candidate, can maximize your financial package. Because at the end of the day, we all love what we do, right? But money matters at the end of the day. So, welcome, Peter.
Thank you very much for welcome. Happy to be here again.
So, Peter, it usually starts with positioning, right? How to even position yourself as a candidate for the best opportunity. So, before we dive deeper to the salary negotiation and all the other compensation package items, let's dive deeper to the positioning. So, how can I, as a candidate, even think about my value on the market?
The main driver or motivator behind the career move is always something. And somewhere around there, usually along the top, is money. And I guess we all want to get the best out of it for us. And it should start with looking where I am today. What's my skill set? What's my value? And what's my ability to impact this or other environments where I'm present and economically active? So think about where am I today, where I'm hoping to be today, to make sure that move is somewhat realistic. And of course, that move is in a direction where I can be utilized the most. My experience, my knowledge, my skills can make the highest possible or best possible impact. And of course, the role is challenging and stimulating enough for me.
So what does it mean in practice? Let's say I'm a technology leader with a background in fintech. What do I do? How do I position myself to increase my overall compensation by 30%? If I earn, say, 200K today, how can I get more with the next job?
Maybe you are underpaid and you can get even $500,000 or more. But again, it's down to the study of where are you today, where you realistically and potentially could be, if not where you are right now, how your salary compares to your current ability to impact and delivery, and what you could potentially achieve, and the environment that can give you the room and the level of autonomy to achieve more, thus bringing higher impact and higher, whether more money or saving of money or a massive impact on time of delivery of something, or just saving hassle in some shape or form. So, understanding that where you are and where you want to go is critical. And also, if you are right now in a certain industry, for example, fintech, which environments outside of fintech can value and welcome your skill set, your experience, your tech stack, and your ability to impact a certain type of business? Maybe you realize you will be much better off in a completely different environment or industry or vertical. So that's a good to spend some time on that to make sure you pick the right way.
It's now when you say it, it's quite important to go through the thinking process, right? Because if I just think about some of the past candidates I've been in touch with, they just start looking for a job right away, and they look at the job board, they identify companies that have vacancies, but they don't really think about what company would value my expertise most, and they don't proactively target those companies, right? Because you may be under the perception that your market value is 200K, but another company would probably pay 300K for the very specific skills, right? And as you say, you would be able to make bigger impact in those specific companies.
Yeah, I agree. The understanding of your impact versus value is incredibly important. Now, the rule of thumb or average is that an employee should bring 4 to 6 times the value they cost. It's not always. In some areas you can apply this, some areas you don't, because some areas, especially fintech or high-tech areas, high-tech environments which are on the edge of possible, where big leaps forward are expected and normal. These are kind of relative and difficult to compare with what we call a traditional or normal industry or economy. It's also good to realize what type of dynamic of environment I thrive in. Some people thrive in more quiet, more paced environments. Some people thrive in these, big boost, big impact, big explosion, or leap, technological leap type of environments, where these massive leaps forward happen in a very short time. So the dynamic of those environments is completely different to the dynamic of other more established or developed environments or areas. So that's where big inventions and big leaps happen. Some people like it, some don't. So it's good to understand if my ability and my skill set is better for this more paced, more structured, step-by-step type of environment, or I'm happy to operate in a massive autonomy area, massive responsibility at the same time, and environment which gives you the space and room and level of autonomy and the support and resources to make these big leaps, big explosive inventions, which can revolutionize some industries.
Yeah. So how about we provide a few examples, like specific examples, so that people who are listening to this podcast, they can imagine what do we mean.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example, what if someone has experience with networking, right? And it could be a tech lead or an engineering lead. What would be the type of a company that would value that specific expertise most?
A number of environments come into my mind where these engineers can operate and where they can be valued in a completely different way. And the difference between the far side on one end and the far side on the other end is pretty dramatic, and we can talk multipliers of numbers. So imagine a network engineer, as you mentioned, senior networking engineer. He's paid, 200K of euro or US dollar in a certain environment where he's a lead or senior engineer, maybe networking, maybe with a large operator or a mobile license operator or network carrier. But he is obsessed by latency, and he's happy to operate outside the switchgear. He is able to operate on a CPU level or low end code level. And there are environments where you can utilize that skill set, where you have the freedom and the resources and the autonomy to trial and error and make experiments in certain areas with the goal of decreasing the latency to the maximum. Good experience would be, good example would be trading or high frequency trading or algorithmic trading, where these companies chasing tiny fractions of second, thousandths of a second. And for them, this means a difference of 100,000 or millions per month.
Yep.
So imagine an enthusiast networking engineer who was in a traditional networking environment a little bit undervalued because he wasn't utilized to his full potential. In these environments, his income would be 2, 3, 4 times multiplied. Yeah. And his impact and ability to change the results, monthly results or quarterly results of this company are suddenly counting millions or tens of millions. Of course, his company is willing to pay him a completely different salary than his old environment, which was somewhat limiting for someone like him.
Yeah. Well, the other example that I recall was an engineering manager who was working on mobile payments in some of the developing countries like Africa, and there was another startup that was looking for someone who had this specific expertise, right? Because the startup was about to release some micropayments. So again, like they were willing to pay premium salary or compensation for someone who had this specific experience or expertise from the past. So for that specific engineering manager, let's say his market value was 200K, but one company was willing to pay 300K because they valued his background with micropayments a lot. And this is what you were talking about, right? When it comes to positioning, thinking about what companies would value the expertise most, and eventually slightly adjusting the positioning so that those companies find you and they recognize you as the ideal candidate.
Yeah. And what was your experience? Because sometimes my experience is that these companies are willing to pay a hefty upmark, which is not always based on hard skills or education or experience. Sometimes these people have 3, 4, 5 candidates to choose from, and they select and pay the highest salary to a candidate who is bringing a certain set of soft skills or a certain type of drive, which they need for whatever the task or mission this candidate is being hired for, and they are willing to pay a multiplier premium, like 1.5, 2, 3 times this person's salary, because they are bringing the certain unmeasurable element, which is difficult to somehow, monetize or measure, but that makes that candidate stand out so massively that they're willing to pay double, triple their salary to have that person on board and drive that project or that task.
Yeah. Well, this really happens. I recall one company was looking for a CTO because they were about to fundraise, and they were looking for someone with strong personal brand, someone with really interesting background in cool, fancy companies, so that the investors would see them as a star team, right? And they would invest money. So often it's not just about the hard skills, but also about the soft skills and the personal brand that could increase the market value.
And can you give us an idea what was the company willing to pay for that, for the authority the candidate was bringing in to assure or lower their risk of getting into that area?
Yeah. Well, I don't recall the specific numbers, and the numbers also differ with companies that are based in the United States and in Europe, right? Because obviously there are differences in market rates. I don't recall the number, no.
I've seen an interesting scenario or witnessed a certain scenario where the company was hiring a director of an area which didn't exist at the time, but they were looking for a certain mix of skills from an industrial and networking / security areas. These days it has a certain name, it's a well-established vertical which is growing massively, but at the time nobody realized. They just knew, okay, in the future the automation will go in this direction, and it's difficult and it's important to secure this. And they were looking at people who didn't exist at the time, and they were willing to pay double, triple the premium for of a certain mix of a real industry established skill set and a certain type of hobby, which whether one or the other was your job and the other was your job hobby, whichever way it was, the company was willing to pay the extra premium for that mix.
That's really interesting now when you say the premium, right? Like, what does it really mean, the premium? On what is the market rate for someone, especially when someone asks you, right? Like, hey, Peter, how much you want? And this often happens with candidates. I mean, you are the headhunter, you call people, you ask them what are their salary expectations, right? So now for people who are listening to this, they are potentially candidates, right? So what should they answer to someone like you when you ask them, hey, what is your market rate? What is the salary that you would like to get? What is the one number that you are worth?
This is a great opportunity to set yourself right from the start, because whatever answer you expect as a candidate should already come from you doing your homework a little bit already, and being aware of what you're currently doing and what you currently paid and a mix of that. And where are you hoping to get into and how much is that paid? There is a ton of information today available, whether officially or unofficially on the internet, whether it's your personal network or official data on the web. There's a ton of statistical data available. ChatGPT can help you. And then you can see how you can realistically position yourself and answer your recruiter correctly in a way. Okay, again, the answer to this question has more versions how to do it right, whether you are talking to a recruiter or you're talking to a potential employer. So, it has two different levels. If you're talking to a recruiter, then of course be honest and open and tell them where you are today, where you're hoping to be, and why. Why do you think the new environment you can make a much bigger impact, thus asking for a lot more money, and how much more money? At the same time, the discussion to a potential employer, how much you want, is completely different, because you have to be more careful and careful in drawing the lines, because you might bump into them later on. So be careful where and how you draw the line.
So would you suggest the candidate says one number, say 200K, or a range, so 180 to 250?
Every salary is a mix of a bunch of items, or a basket of items. Some companies pay bigger base, smaller perks or bonuses. Some companies pay smaller base and higher perks and bonuses. So again, it's good to look at the overall package. What's the value of that? And what's the value of each of these items? People who have families, houses, and so on, they want bigger base. People who are, a bit more adventurous and they go after the big buck, they go for a scenario with lesser base but larger bonus earning potential. Again, the bonus, it's important whether it's their own personal or company based. So how much of a personal impact they have on the bonus they get paid. So just to sum it up, do it right, be realistic, be honest and open, and have a good target, realistic target where you want to end up. And of course, if that target is kind of exceeded, good, happy days. But be ready for a situation where the people are trying to downplay and negotiate low. Where are they coming from? What are their real intentions? And to make sure, if you are pursuing something, it's the good way to utilize your time and your skills, and whether you are better off elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, for me, when a candidate says a number, it's an invite for a discussion or a negotiation, right? Because if someone says, hey, I want 200K, I mean, what the person really says is, I'm okay with 190, I would like to get 210, I would probably consider 150, right? If the circumstances are right. So it's also our job to discover what the real meaning of the one number is, right?
What's the candidate's rock bottom? And in sales and marketing, these differences are much, much larger than you mentioned. Like, okay, if a candidate positions themselves in the 200K area, good salespeople usually aim for a lot higher to make sure they have a good case going on, even if it ends up much lower. So you have to consider a certain, who are you talking with, and how smart they are with numbers, because salespeople are pretty good with them.
Yep.
And also what the earning potential of the role is. How much of an impact am I going to have? As a recruiter in a small, tiny startup with 10 people, and they pay me 5K a month, they would be delighted. It's a nice place, lovely people, and so on. But if my abilities, my skill set, my experience in a different environment, in a different scale, my impact, or the difference between me being there or not on that company's end, can be 20 million. Of course, they can value me on a completely different scale. So that 5K a month in that environment, in this environment, can be 50K for me a month.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of relativity in between.
Yeah. Well, this reminds me, some of the trading companies in the United States, like they pay to interns, not even graduates, but to interns, they pay like $20,000 in New York, for example, per, during the internship, summer internship. So just consider this, right? For an intern in the United States, 20,000. But it's only because the engineer is so valuable for that company. Like the same engineer with the same skills in another company would get much less amount of money, right? Just the standard market rate for a software engineer. So that comes down to the positioning and identifying what company are you most valuable for, and then just saying the number, right? Or the range that you would be potentially comfortable with.
Yeah. And doing the homework up front Where are similar people like me in this new environment which I'm potentially about to enter, to make sure I'm not shooting myself in the foot or not position myself way under. Of course, every company is looking for getting a bargain, but it doesn't pay off on the long term for either side. So it's good when it's done properly and someone on the realistic levels. Yeah.
Okay, so now if we shift gears to negotiating the overall package, right? How can someone even think about the overall package? Like, what does it include? How to negotiate or maximize the total package? Where to even start the negotiation?
Something comes up my mind. It's a joke, like, what is the budget? You can start like that, but it may not put you into the right light how to start your negotiation. A realistic expectation is a good start, and setting your own borderline or like a limits. Okay, target line, bottom line. Okay, so nothing below that. Medium scenario and the top end scenario or best case scenario. If you have these in mind when you're starting the negotiation, you already putting yourself into the realistic brackets or limitations, because the company, guess what, they have the same. They have like some kind of a median, what the most of the people like yourself are getting paid in that company. Then they have a lower end and as well as a higher end. In the medium to large companies, you even have salary ranges. So you cannot hire a certain person below a certain salary because it will mess up their compensation ratios. At the same time, on the top end, they only pay above the real high impact individuals which are making a significant difference. And if the base salary or in standard bonus is not enough, they usually add a ton of other stuff to top up and bridge the gap or fill in the gap. It can be stock, RSUs, options, throw in a car, or sign-on bonus, or adding other perks which the candidate would normally individually pay out of their pocket, but the company is willing to pay for that. I don't know, housing, accommodation, tuition fees for kids, or childcare for kids if they are under school, and so on, to make it sweeter for the candidate, but pay it in a different way. So the finance team is also happy, you know what I mean, and the candidate at the same time.
Yeah. Well, now this also reminds me one candidate who was hired with us in Dubai, and that was a dream package coming through, really, because like you enumerated some of the benefits, and I think he had it all: free housing, school for kids, catering at work,
transportation fees, you name it. Yeah,
I mean,
medical bills.
And in the UAE, there is no income tax, or there was no income tax back then. So I mean, he just kept all the money he received, and he couldn't even spend anything there. Yeah. It's just crazy.
It's not easy not to spend any money in Dubai, to be perfectly honest. But if you're frugal, you can.
Yeah. With a good package.
It's so easy to just slide down the hill into the Dolce Vita, as they say. Yeah.
But it's great that you mentioned the salary ranges, because of course a company, especially the larger ones, they are bound to certain ranges. But this is a wonderful opportunity for the candidate to start negotiating the other parts of the overall compensation, right? So you can say, okay, this is fixed, range that there is no way to go around. But hey, let's talk about annual bonuses. Let's talk about a sign-on bonus, or let's discuss the schooling or housing, accommodation, whatever, right? Like there are so many different aspects that could be included.
Yeah, there's a number of items where companies, and it applies to some extent to mid and large size companies, but also small size companies, because they're limited by certain laws and rules of a finance or accounting in that company and taxation. And there are certain group of items where the company is completely fixed, rock solid, no movement. It has to be this. But there are certain items, which they can throw in, and they are more flexible on that. So look for ways of compensating in those directions where you don't feel the resistance from neither your boss or their finance team. So, okay, we cannot give it to you in this form, but we were thinking of, what do you think of this? I don't know, stocks, company car, fuel card, you name it.
Yeah.
There are ways how the company can use different accounting channels to deliver that value to that candidate without hurting themselves too much or messing up a certain type of order or compensation levels or hierarchy in a company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I recall one candidate who negotiated an MBA studies for himself, which, if you think about it, it's quite a good way for the company also to keep the employer for a longer run, right? Because it takes a year to complete the MBA studies. So that's one thing to consider. The other is that for the candidate, it's additional 100K earned, so to speak, because that's what it costs to pay for the MBA tuition.
And typically, when the companies are committing to such a medium or large type of benefits or bonuses, which are spread over a larger period of time, they usually get documents signed which are in place. So it gives or decreases the risk for the company, for the candidate to leave prematurely, because there's a certain commitment from my end, from our end. We expect you to provide a similar commitment from your end. So if we're about to give you this and this for your tuition or for your MBA, okay, we expect you to stay certain length of time to make sure our investment is worthwhile. So it gives a bit of a assurance to both sides, job security on the employees' end or candidates' end, and at the same time for the company, hey, we have this role, this seat. There's a low risk of this seat becoming an issue for us. The person is, engaging, committed. We're paying for their studies, and we're getting a certain level of loyalty in place. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. There is one more aspect. It could be relocation, right? Relocation package that someone can negotiate, which could be connected with a sign-on bonus, right? Like there are so many different ways how to approach this. So the relocation package may only include the transportation costs for the luggage, right? But it could also include additional 20, 30, 50K one-time bonus for someone to relocate, right? to motivate the wife and kids.
Absolutely. And it's good when you negotiate to know all the items or all the potential logistical steps when you're relocating, because there are so many items and so many possibilities along the way, like, visa, costs of visa, flights, who can fly, myself or whole family, medical bills. First month, people who relocated international, they know how much of a hassle it is. And they can value and appreciate if a company looks after even the smaller aspects, which not everybody realizes, but they are such a relief, especially when you're moving to a new country, having a new job, trying to perform well, settle in, become valuable. And those first few weeks and costs and hassle associated with setting up and establishing yourself in a new country, that can make a massive impact in somebody deciding to go for it or not.
Exactly. Yeah. What about healthcare?
Oh, big one.
Especially in the US, right?
US countries, in general, countries with private insurance. There's a lot of countries in Europe which we have a state-based, decent public healthcare, but especially countries where you have a private healthcare, this is this can change the balance on the scales. As you mentioned, US, Switzerland, there's a number of countries coming up in my mind which have a private healthcare, and if it's on an individual, okay, but imagine on a family scale, family of 5 with different ages of children. So that can be a massive item on your monthly budget, which if somebody takes care of it, that means more pocket in your more money left in your pocket at the end of the month.
Awesome. So I just wrote down a few of these aspects of the overall compensation, right? And it's kind of interesting to see that there are so many of them, and people most often focus on the salary, right? Like, what's your expected salary? My expected salary is X. And they kind of neglect all of these other aspects, right?
Quite often there's a lot more money in those other items
Exactly.
than the base itself. If you're coming in as a chief technology officer or a high-end manager/director, and you're coming to a growing small or medium-sized company, your impact on that business can be massive. Imagine they give you an opportunity to share some of the fruits of your work in the form of a stock or stock units or options. Hey, okay, we expect this and this project to have such and such impact. Low case scenario, low end, high end scenario. This is what we expect in 2, 3, 5 years time with you on board. We're absolutely happy to, reward you in an appropriate way for whatever you're going to spend in here in terms of your time and effort and energy and knowledge and all that. And they transparently share, okay, we're going to give you this package or this amount of stock after this amount of time or upon reaching a certain milestone of the project. And imagine this person has 200, 300K salary. But in this equity, they can return, they can get
10x.
5, 10, 20 times. Suddenly the base salary is becoming completely irrelevant because the earning potential is so massive that whatever is my base, I don't care.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, sometimes I ask also prospective candidates, especially for the leadership roles, what their expectation is, right?
Mhm.
And I'm always floored when people say a number that is above $1 million, right? For a technology leadership role, like $1.5 million, $2 million, especially in the United States. It's quite common to have the stocks included as well, or the annual bonuses. And for a lot of people out there, it may feel unreal, right? But especially if you start including the other aspects of the salary, then a whole new set of opportunities open up, and you can kind of go way above $1 million.
Yeah. So that discussion is entering a completely different dimension than just, okay, base, tiny bonus, maybe a car.
Yeah.
At that stage is...
So it's not guaranteed, of course, right? But it could happen.
And when it happens,
then it rains.
There's a little bit of work in the meantime, but if you are one of those people who are enjoying and thriving those environments where you can have a maximum ownership and impact, and the rule or the law of action reaction can have the freedom to work, that's the environment for you. And that's what I would say, look for signals of this environment. If you feel like you are the person which thrives in these large autonomy environments with a large impact and at the same time large earning potential, go for it. Yeah. There is nothing worse than reaching an old age and then, that day, that year, I could have taken that opportunity. How different my
Yeah. Well, this also reminded me the good old saying, go where the money is, right? There are certain companies in certain industries where there is a lot of money to be made. They make lots of money, and they also pay awesome compensation packages.
Yeah, so think about how do you gonna and where do you gonna spend those 8, 10, 12 hours a day that we normally spend at work. How much of a return, and monthly or annually, where can you financially be? Where are you going to invest your time? What's the best way to utilize whatever you can offer? And find the best balance for yourself.
So to recap what we discussed, it starts with the positioning, thinking about what companies would value your expertise most, then anchoring the one number, $500,000, $1 million, whatever you are comfortable with, and then breaking it down to all of these aspects, right? It could be the salary, that is the fixed amount that you get every month, the annual bonus, it could be the profit share or compensation.
Or equity in any form, yeah.
Yeah, performance bonus, it could be the employee stock option plan, stock or car you mentioned also. I mean, some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, but still, I mean, to have a nice car could count. All-day catering, nursery or school covered, healthcare, MBA, relocation package, or even some tax optimization. Maybe there are some other ways how candidates can also, say, be employed and then invoice through another entity the annual bonuses so that they optimize taxes.
Yeah, that can be a big one. If you're talking about jobs or roles which don't have a fixed location or a kind of a certain need to be in a certain location a certain time. Imagine like a European or EMEA director or manager or CTO can be based anywhere. So I'm just thinking of people in the Nordics with a 50 to 70% total deductions a month.
Yeah.
If I'm thinking their shoes, being based in Dubai or Luxembourg or these tax-friendly locations, the same package, but being based here or there can make a difference of a multiplier of 2.
Yeah.
So
And you don't even have to go that far. Now, when you say it, I mean, even Slovakia is a country where you pay little taxes compared to Germany or
absolutely
some of the Nordic countries, right? Or Netherlands. I mean, people who have a limited company here and they invoice through the company, say below 100K per year, they pay only 10% dividend tax, right? And you can have 2 companies and optimize taxes this way. So it could be one way. I'm not saying it's for everyone, right? But there are different ways how to optimize taxes. Think about where you can be the tax resident and even consider this when you get a remote job, right? Because you can earn 300K working for a remote company and be a tax resident in Germany. Eventually, you are left with not that much at the end of the day, right? Or you can be a tax resident of a country like Slovakia and be better off eventually.
Or an employee in a center of London with 300K, to be honest. I don't know how much of a win that is, but there is a lot of people who can speak from personal experience. Having 150K somewhere else is much better than having 300K in the center of London.
Of course.
There's so much relativity in between here.
Yeah. So it's good that we also mentioned this because it could be a way how to also maximize the overall net income. It's not about
increase the so-called take-home money.
Yeah.
How much you're taking home after all the bills are paid.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. So is there any other part of the compensation that we haven't covered and you would like to mention before we wrap it up?
We covered a lot. I'm thinking what else we did not, but what I would add is just follow your heart, follow your authentic self, where you want to be where you want to spend the next whatever couple of years or months or whatever the project is. Money is a great thing, but if you're not happy there, how good is $1 million a day if you're not enjoying yourself? So make sure wherever you invest from yourself, including the time and your effort, your energy, your charisma, and all those things, to make sure you get not only money in return, but all these other things. So when Sunday evening or Monday morning you're opening your laptop, make sure you have a good feeling.
Yeah, you're excited to be back.
Yeah, exactly. And you're looking forward. And it's not like Sunday evening you're going to bed and, tomorrow you have to go to work again. No.
Yeah.
And these people and the boss and the silly project. And, that's, make sure it's stimulating and it's you enjoying yourself along the way. Yeah. Money, you can make any money anytime, but time, you only have one time. So make sure you spend it wisely.
Well, that's a great advice at the end. Cool. So thanks for joining. It was great learning about all of these optimizations and how to position for the maximum profit at the end of the day. So I'll see you soon again.
It was my pleasure.